the idea that there's a lot of foreign people coming in and taking council housing or social housing is false.
Another political party have made an announcement about social housing. Reform have come out today and said that they would like to restrict who is eligible for social housing, and they want British nationals who are in work to be the only people who have a priority for it. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think it's scaremongering, and I think it's insulting. Actually, what people know out there is that we have a housing crisis because we haven't built the homes that we need desperately in the...
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
This country, nearly all of our social housing goes to UK nationals now. Most people can see that we don't have the housing we desperately need. And I think it's a very divisive policy. I think it's wrong. I think it doesn't reflect the current circumstances that our country faces. We need to build homes. And that's what we've said we're going to do. That's why we've got the historic settlement today, is to build the social housing that we desperately need. But the idea that there's a lot of foreign people coming in and taking council housing or social housing is false. There isn't enough social and affordable homes in this country, and that's why we've been focusing on increasing the amount of homes that we've got here so that people can have their own home.
Remember,
do you not think an extra 10 million people is going to have an effect on housing?
Do you think that if we lock down our borders, we're going to solve the housing crisis?
Well,
is that going to solve it?
The thing is, the more people you have in a country, the more houses you're going to need. I know it might sound...
He's really good at explaining things, ladies, isn't he? Yeah.
I'll make sure.
Yeah. Using immigration on the issue of housing, I think is absolutely...
Are you saying it has no impact on housing?
I think Andy wanted to come in.
Do you want to just answer that question, Rob? Do you think it has no
Does
impact
immigration have an effect on housing?
Whoever lives in this country has an impact on housing, of course.
All right.
The numbers of people in a country. That's not necessarily...
How do you, as a politician, react to that sight?
Well, Nick, my honest reaction to that is that I remember a number of years ago when we saw a toddler wash up on the shore in the UK, and how upsetting that is when I've got children myself, and I feel absolutely appalled that these criminal gangs will load a boat up to dangerous levels that is not a seaworthy vessel and put innocent lives of desperate people at risk. And that's why we have to crack down on these criminal gangs that are doing that. The methods that our Home Secretary has already put in place are seeing those numbers coming down. But every time someone gets into one of these vessels, which, you know, they call them small boats or however large you want to say, they're not in most cases seaworthy vessels, and they're putting innocent lives at risk, and we've got to crack that and we've got to stop that from happening.
Do you understand there's another emotion many people feel, not just, as it were, sympathy, empathy with the people on board and the risk they face? It is rage. What they see is people on no longer a taxi service, a bus service, coming across the channel, and where do they go? Not back to France, where they were visible from the shore, but here, to the UK, to make their lives.
Well, these are desperate, vulnerable people getting into these vessels that are dangerous, and we've got to stop that.
When political theatre collides with housing reality on the streets of Britain. Welcome back to Britain Underneath, where we pull back the glossy curtain of Westminster to expose the raw mechanics of British power. Before we dive into the deep end of today's debate, if you value serious, sharp, and unfiltered political analysis, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. It truly helps the channel keep digging beneath the surface. Now, let us dive straight into it. The quiet crisis in Westminster. Who is really running Britain behind closed doors? take a breath, settle in, and stay informed. Because what is currently unfolding inside the corridors of Westminster is a masterclass in political manoeuvrings that almost nobody is talking about openly. Welcome to Britain Underneath, the place where we pull back the heavy velvet curtains of British power and examine the raw machinery operating beneath the surface of the United Kingdom. Before we dive straight into the heart of today's revelation, do take a moment to subscribe to Britain Underneath and tap that notification bell. It truly helps this independent channel bring you the grounded, unflattering truths about British politics that the mainstream commentary so frequently glosses over. Now, let us dive straight into the core of the issue.
But the idea that there's a lot of foreign people coming in and taking council housing or social housing is false.
Another political party have made an announcement about social housing. Reform have come out today and said that they would like to restrict who is eligible for social housing, and they want British nationals who are in work to be the only people who have a priority for it. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think it's scaremongering, and I think it's insulting. Actually, what people know out there is that we have a housing crisis because we haven't built the homes that we need desperately in this country. Nearly all of our social housing goes to UK nationals now. Most people can see that we don't have the housing we desperately need. And I think it's a very divisive policy. I think it's wrong. I think it doesn't reflect the current circumstances that our country faces. We need to build homes. And that's what we've said we're going to do. That's why we've got the historic settlement today, is to build the social housing that we desperately need. But the idea that there's a lot of foreign people coming in and taking council housing or social housing is false. There isn't enough social and affordable homes in this country, and that's why we've been focusing on increasing the amount of homes that we've got here so that people can have their own home.
The ongoing national debate regarding social housing allocation has reached a fever pitch, placing the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, directly in the centre of a stormy political crossfire. The core issue revolves around a controversial proposed policy, initially championed by Reform UK and subsequently adapted by the Conservative opposition, which seeks to restrict access to local council housing and social accommodation, primarily to British citizens and long-term working families, whilst systematically removing eligibility for non-UK nationals. When questioned by reporters on whether prioritised allocation for British-born citizens, working households and military veterans represents a common-sense measure, Ms Rayner offered a response that has drawn intense scrutiny and sharp counter-arguments from independent political observers across the spectrum. In her media appearances, Ms Rayner flatly dismissed the proposal, labelling the policy as divisive, unserious, and insulting to the public. She asserted that the nation's severe housing shortage is fundamentally a supply-side crisis driven by a failure to build new properties over recent decades, rather than the result of foreign nationals occupying social housing. According to the Housing Secretary, the vast majority of council homes are already awarded to British citizens, and focusing on foreign tenancy figures serves merely to distract from the core objective of constructing fresh housing stock. She stressed that current regulations already restrict individuals without indefinite leave to remain from accessing social housing, accusing political rivals of attempting to generate widespread public apprehension. Taking a deep breath and analysing the situation objectively, one can see how this communication strategy fundamentally undermines the government's credibility. Rather than offering a balanced breakdown that acknowledges how high population growth inevitably places additional friction on local authority housing stocks, the ministry has defaulted to dismissive dismissals. When journalists pressed Ms Rayner on why Ms Rayner should refuse to abstain from these prejudices, When journalists pressed Miss Rayner on why military veterans and long-standing local residents frequently find themselves stuck on local waiting lists while thousands of units are allocated under broad eligibility criteria, her standard response remained anchored solely to future house-building targets that critics point out remain largely unfulfilled. Furthermore, political analysts have noted the strategic dilemma facing the administration. Observers report that the government appears hesitant to implement strict citizenship-based criteria out of concern over alienating specific core demographic segments within their urban electoral base. By attempting to maneuver around the topic with broad talking points, the front bench inadvertently exposes its own vulnerabilities. It leaves the door wide open for rival parties to frame the government as out of touch with the everyday realities of working-class communities who feel consistently overlooked in their own hometowns. The broader public is far too astute to accept oversimplified political messaging. When ministers insist that foreign tenancy allocations carry no material weight in the nationwide housing backlog, it risks coming across as patronising to citizens who experience the scarcity of local public services every single day. Constructing tens of thousands of new homes is a noble and necessary objective. But until those bricks are laid, allocating existing, scarce resources remains an active daily management challenge that demands total intellectual honesty from those in power. If you are finding this breakdown insightful and wish to stay informed on the genuine shifts defining the future of our nation, please take a moment to subscribe to Britain Underneath. Watching these high-profile media rounds, one gains a distinct impression of a front bench attempting to control a narrative that has already drifted beyond its grasp. When a minister dismissed concerns regarding population pressure as mere scaremongering, only to acknowledge moments later that total population density drives overall housing demand, the narrative contradictions became impossible to ignore. The press corps was quick to highlight this circular logic, demonstrating that no amount of polished communication can substitute for coherent policy. As the government pushes forward with its national development targets, the political friction surrounding fairness, citizenship, and state support will only intensify. The public expects mature leadership that confronts difficult trade-offs directly, rather than avoiding structural realities with superficial slogans. Thank you for tuning in to Britain Underneath. Make sure to stay informed, encourage others to join the debate, and subscribe today so you never miss our upcoming political deep dives. We look forward to having you back for our next release.